Good morning, everybody, dear friends. Well, I'm discovering that my heart gets softer and softer every time I walk in here on a Sunday morning. Realizing increasingly just how hard it is to be a human being, and recognizing how much we're all going through. I have a public service announcement. Would the owner of the silver Mazda Protege, license plate 560HMJ, please identify yourself and move your car, because the person who lives there has less than 1 inch of space to get out, quote. And is that person here? Okay. It's you. You troublemaker. I knew about the troublemaker piece, but tell me, would you tell me where it is after? Use my spot. Oh no, I'm in it. Okay, but show me after, because I want to go visit her. So a request in general, which is, when you come on Sunday mornings, why not come an extra 5 minutes early and park a couple blocks away? It would be really great for the neighbors to not have everything just jammed. And we are having more and more events now, and so more of the time they're struggling for parking. So if you can. How's the sound? I didn't check. Good? Okay. Hello to those of you joining us on the internet. I'm going to start in an unusual fashion today, I guess. I had a dream this morning. I was up early, quick bathroom pause. I was up around 5, slept till 6:15. And I woke up from a very difficult dream. It was difficult, but afterwards it wasn't difficult, if I explain that after maybe. But it went like this. I almost brought my dog today, because he figures strongly in the dream. But he goes everywhere with me, or mostly everywhere. When I bicycle, he has his crate that he rides, his little cart in the back he rides in, and he's been a therapy dog since he was little. He has this astounding capacity when someone's in my office and they're dropping into some deep grief, and they just go deeper and deeper and deeper, and then when they hit that absolute dark pit, and the tears are coming, he will go and he'll put one paw up on the cushion and kind of ask, and if the person allows it, he'll go and he'll lick one tear, and then he'll go back to his place. So it'll sometimes propel the person deeper into their sadness. He's not particularly a cuddly dog, but in those moments. But anyway, he's been my pal. He was born on my bed. And so in this dream, I'm feeling sad as I talk about it, he was out, and it was a place I didn't know. He was out loose, and there was a big accident of some kind. I went out and there was a car upside down, and I was calling for him, and then the Max line was right there too. And a Max driver went by and said, dogs that are loose should be shot. And then I was beginning to, you know how it is when you miss a pet or a person, the realization that something bad has happened starts to build. It was building and building and building. And then I was somehow way off to the left and in a valley, and then it was a really big valley. And then I had realized that he wasn't coming. And at the full-throated scream, kind of like a scream, but I was calling his name. His name is Buddha. I was like, Buddha, Buddha, where are you, Buddha? And he wasn't coming. And that's when I woke up. And I'm aware he's aging. He's 12. He'll probably, all things, he could live another 4 or 5 years. But my dear friend Don McEachern, who I'll be seeing a week from today, I begin my retreat at Hollyhock, and Don will be assisting me. He sent his beautiful old friend Isla on her great journey just a few days ago. We've been talking about that. And so I'm feeling that sadness right now. But then I woke up and I realized what I'm going to be talking about today. I started a series last week on the Eightfold the Eightfold Path, and I started with Dukkha, unsatisfactory and suffering, last Sunday. And I'm going to pick up the next of the Four Noble Truths today, which is tanha, or craving, or grasping, this wanting things to be different. And it seemed to me that that dream was a perfect message, which was a very sobering message, which is the suffering that we go through because of our profound identification with our separateness. And I don't aspire to not have that feeling, but also that one of the main purposes of spiritual practice is to prepare us for when these massive tearings away happen, because they do. And so, we practice for stress management reasons, and we practice for psychological, emotional reasons, but we also practice to go really deep so that we can realize that which we really are, which includes the having and the losing and the closeness and the distance. And so that's how I wanted to begin today. That we all, there's so much happening in terms of having and losing. It's what we do. So the refuges, it doesn't make sense to take refuge in a little white dog. It makes sense to have him as a great friend, companion, pal. But that's not a wise place to take refuge. And then there's these traditional refuge of taking refuge in that which is awake, and that which is the Dharma, and in the great community of practice and the community of all beings. So let me take a moment to see how out of tune this is. Some of you saw me struggling with plugging in and unplugging. I discovered that there's a device designed specifically for that purpose, oddly enough. So please join me and we'll sing the refuges. Oops, hang on, I gotta get it turned on. Do we have... Yeah. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Sangha. I take refuge in the Sangha, the way in harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. From the top, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. Dharma, I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. So, consciousness and a body. Sitting, aware of sitting. We take it for granted in the same way I think that fish take water for granted. But there's something very odd happening here. There's a body, a temporary structure dependent upon food and water and lots of other things, and air. And there's an awareness, a presence, something that knows this body. And the Buddha made the discovery a long time ago. Pretty brilliant fellow, an ordinary human being though, not unlike us. That it's possible to use this awareness to pay attention in such a way that we can help ourselves become much happier and more compassionate, more wise, more loving. And a good place to start is awareness of the sensations of breathing in and breathing out. So it can actually be known in the tissues and bones of the chest and abdomen, sides, the back. Breathing happens. And It's unimproved breathing. It's just the breath breathing itself. It's the body relaxing into the present moment and awareness receiving the life. There is, of course, the mind, and its tendency is to think, to create memories and plans. In fact, the mind creates the past and future as fantasies in the present. So when you sit down to practice, you will no doubt encounter what we call the wandering mind. It's not a mistake, it's not a failure, it's not the enemy, it's not even something you have to get rid of. You can't. Or not for long. Much more skillful would be to realize when thinking is happening and neither attach to it and indulge it nor go to war with it. Just let it be and then return to breathing in and breathing out. That's all. Please use the intention to be with the sensations of breathing very delicately, very kindly. If you saw a toddler walking towards some dangerous stairs, and she or he were not particularly close to them, you might simply approach and have something interesting in your hand and say, "Look at this, come on over here." And it's with that kind of intention, great kindness. It's protective, but you don't need to be yanking the mind around. And there's a question of how intimate you can become with this that breathes. These human minds can and do think about everything. They get caught up in emotions. They get tangled in what are called the 5 hindrances: desire and aversion and restlessness and sloth and torpor and doubt. And fear and anger and jealousy and hopefulness and hopelessness and delight and despair, all of them. Fortunately, we have this very simple but potent practice of noticing them for what they are: thoughts, emotions, phantoms. And then redirecting awareness to the sensations, the actual sensations of breathing in and out. We live much of our lives in the trance of everyday life. We relate to people and events through ideas and theories about them, rather than directly. One aspect of this training is that we practice with what's called bare attention. And bare attention means to simply pay attention to the sensations. There's awareness and there are sensations. Just that. And as we do that, we have to change our vocabulary, because it doesn't make sense to say, pay attention to the breath. There's no such thing as a breath. There's a moment when it begins, and there are sensations, and then they're gone, and then it continues, and then they're gone. Until there's fullness in the lungs, and then there's the transition, and then there's the decline. And by the time of the transition, the beginning is another century. It's the past, it's gone. And then there's the ending, sensation, stop. The Buddha speaks of this, that we're doing as going against the stream. When there's an itch, we want to scratch it. When there's an ache, we want to move away from it. When there's a painful thought, we want to distract. When there's boredom, we want stimulation. This maintains the status quo. But here we are going against the stream. We are doing a practice which illuminates our personality, our mammalian impulses. our earlier and more primitive impulses even. And through whatever happens, we have this marvelous body that sits here. From the Thai forest tradition, we have a very simple and crucial reminder. Whenever you want to bring your practice into perfect balance, remember to say this: this moment is like this. It's like this. Such a relief not to have to go with, well, this moment is like this, but it should be different. I should be more concentrated. I should be over this sadness by now. I shouldn't be being troubled by this mood. Me, mine, on and on. Instead, it's like this right now. It's like this. Perhaps you can be aware of your entire body, or the places where the body touches the cushion or the floor or the chair. And please invite awareness to be in the face, in the lips and the cheeks and the eyes. Notice how you can move your eyes around inside their beautiful orbits, their sockets. You can look to the left and the right and up and down. There's not much seeing, but there's a sensation of movement. And then noticing what it takes in the mind to form a plan, an intention to let your eyes open. And then at some time in the next minute or so to actually let that operationalize itself, to let it open, let them open. But be present, see what happens as an experiment when the eyelids lift up and away. Seeing happens. Objects are born. Seeing. And notice how it is if you wanted to look around the room a little bit, but to notice the intention before you move the eyes, to know, they're going to move to the right now, or up or down or left. Really present for this mystery of objects and light and an eye, and then seeing. And then maybe a little stretch to notice. But be home in your body. Notice if the mind or when the mind wanders off, and come back. Be here. I become increasingly aware of the importance of community, and I want to invite you to participate in this community as fully as you wish. And if you want to take the leap and become more involved, there's volunteering to do. We do need an opener. And we need some help in housekeeping. We have Kirsten here who will hook you up if you want. And I'm going to try a little experiment, which is, if there's someone who has the wherewithal to build a simple cedar gate to certain specifications, if you would come and see me, I could put you to work for an hour or two. And you can always support the community financially. We have a basket back there, which was my begging bowl in Burma 480 years ago. It really does seem like another life. And also you can contribute online and be part of our, I can never get it right, I get stuck with the sustaining circle, the stewardship circle. I've been listening to NPR, it's their begging week, and I've been listening to how they do it, and I just couldn't do it, couldn't do it like that. But anyway, it's very important. And there's lots of things clamoring for your excess, for your discretionary funds, but this is a pretty important place to be in support of. And I guess I'll do this now too. I'd like you to imagine something. Look over there at that set of windows, and they're gone. And there's a hole in the wall that goes all the way to the floor. It's okay, those of you that are safe, the visualization is not going to take it away now. And at the top there's a big window, there's a big transom window, and then on the sides there's windows, and then there's a really nice door. And that door goes out to a deck that then goes to a ramp, and it goes to the back door, and then goes to another ramp, and it goes out to the street. And we're moving ahead. I finally found someone, I think, who's doing drawings. And we have a builder looking at the rough drawings that we have and giving us a bid. And we're really moving ahead on making this place accessible. It is accessible. I always forget to mention, or often, there are 4 devices for if you have hearing difficulties. They're very clear, and they're back there for your use at any time. But we're going to overcome this obstacle that we've had here in this building since we got it, and we've known about it forever. I got a little bit more of a fire under my butt recently. I went to someone's home who cannot get in the building because he is in a wheelchair. And once again, he's not the first, but somehow or another we're in process, and it's kind of like, God, we got to get off our butt and do this. So we're doing it. So you'll hear more, and you'll hear about the fundraising when that starts. But you just visualize that. Isn't that a nice thing to do? Yeah. Okay, Jim, a little movement. And we're going to have Jim do some movement, and then Avi will do some announcements, and then I will talk today on the second ennobling truth, and then we'll have goodies for you. Turn off, maybe. Click.
So here we are. I saw something on the web with me moving my arms like this and everybody standing out there, and it said 2012 on the, wow, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm still trying to get in touch with my feet. Where are my feet? Let's start with the hands, and we'll lift the right hand and look at it. And pause, and then drop that hand, and at the same time lift the left hand and look at that. And pause, and turn back, and how many sensations are there? Firing off, moving this coconut from one position to another, to look at this hand, and then to switch, come back to the other side. I was with my Tai Chi buddies Saturday morning, and somebody was trying to do the form across a little crack in the sidewalk that's opened up with age and decomposition. And I said, mind the gap. So here, let's see, we're going to look over to one side, and there's a gap between lifting and dropping. Can we mind the gap? There's a gap between dropping and lifting. So all these sensations are organized into something we call resisting gravity and surrendering to gravity. And one's happening on one side, and one's happening on the other. And we'll release these hands down and watch the same thing as we sink and open. We're resisting gravity. Certain kinds of sensations remind us of that. There's a gap, and then we cooperate with gravity. But at our pace, we don't do it at 32 feet per second or whatever the heck it is. Our nervous system moderates the cooperation with gravity. And then there's a gap. And then there's a lifting. And each of these moves for the Qigong routine is structured the same way. There's a gap someplace, maybe multiple gaps, but there's usually some really obvious gaps. We lift, turn the wrists and turn the shoulders and open, and then we stop opening, and there's a gap between that and closing, and then descending again. And if we speed up a little bit, can we mind the gaps? Can we attend to those little seams? That is to say, let the attention settle on the seam. How much effort does it take to do that? No effort at all. Let the attention settle on the seam. And this was the picture on the Facebook with a whole bunch of people painting a rainbow. And reaching up, separating clouds. There's a sinking, cooperating with gravity, and then resisting. Turning the wrists, pressing, opening. Little gaps everywhere. Effortless attending. Open to the side, and there's a gap. Press with one hand, pull with the other, and there's a gap. And descending, ascending, and descending. Minding the gap. pretty soon there's a continuity of effort, a little tiny effort to follow all the transitions, lifting up in the heel, in the arm, in the hand, the eyeballs, releasing. What effort does it take to look up? It's effortless mindfulness. Turning and gazing at the moon, there's a gap. There's a gap in mindfulness there. I didn't reset my alarm. All right, pressing across. And here's an interesting set of gaps. Reaching across, beginning the move across, dropping one hand, lifting the other. Do they get to their gaps the same time? How can we monitor these more complex motions? Does it take effort? Does it help to grit your teeth? What's the other thing? Keep a stiff upper lip. I don't see how that's going to help. All right, we'll step out and splash in the sea. And a gap till we ride the waves. And opening the arms, the palms are up, and then we turn the wrist, and we turn the wrist again. And then it comes to a close. We come back to the center, feel the balance between the 2 feet and the 2 legs, and center of gravity right in the center of the body, and then put it in motion again. Stretching, opening, and gathering again. We ride the waves. Opening the arms. And back to the center. Pausing, feeling the balance. Full breath. Sink, make a fist, let the dragon rise from the sea. And there's lots of little transitions. Spreading our wings, we go up on our toes. More transitions. Here's an interesting one. Turn the wheel. Where's the gap? Circles are so interesting. Reverse. And one more little puzzle. One arm and one knee. Attending to the gaps. We got to slow down. I can feel them more consistently if we slow down. And one more. And then returning to just the centering feeling, following the center of gravity up and down. Dropping all the complexity and getting simple. And then standing at rest. More simplicity. Where are the gaps now? You can see why the Buddha focused on the breath as a tool. It's the most predominant set of gaps when we're standing still. Minding the gap. And then sinking, opening one more time. And sinking again in a different position, opening the palms up, turning the palms down. Where's the gap? 2 circles, one in each hand. Okie doke. Thank you very much. I'll be here on October 14th from 10 till 2, playing with the same kind of experiments, minding the gaps. There we go.
Good morning, Sangha. This thing does not want to stay on my ear. Don't know why. For those of you who do not know, my name is Avi. My role here, or one of my roles here, is community coordinator, your friendly neighborhood community coordinator. And I'm going to start off by saying I'm feeling a little unsettled today. Very few of the things that I figured I was going to do worked out this morning. I was late. I didn't know it was the first. I completely forgot it was the first Sunday of the month. My computer is not working. Yeah, it's like that. And so I am feeling unsettled, and I have the privilege of this morning doing my Dharma work of not only the fact that the stuff that I figured I needed to do didn't get done, but also that I've got to appear in front of you in a way that is less than perfect, which I absolutely insist on. So that ain't gonna happen. And if I was doing announcements for the Chamber of Commerce, I wouldn't tell you all of this, but because this is virtual community and we're all doing the same work, well, I get to say it. So thank you for allowing me to be open and transparent about that. So before I get into sort of like the regular stuff, classes, events, and things like that, Pilar, one of our community members, Pilar, could you raise your hand, please? Everyone look over. Pilar is over here. Pilar is trying to help a friend whose name is Phil, and he is retired. I believe he's a Native American. Is he a vet also? He's also a vet. He's looking for some kind of reasonably priced living space for him and his service dog. And I know that we cannot help everybody. But what I try and do is I try and be satisfied where when people come into my field of vision and I'm aware and there is something I can do, I do what I can. So what we can do is we can look at this information. There are some flyers out there in the hallway. Please grab a flyer. Use the power of social networking to look at this, see if there is some way in which you can help this fine gentleman who has done his service for our country. And if you can't, throw it on your social media and leverage the power of all of us being connectors and reaching as many people as possible so that this fine gentleman can find a comfortable place to spend the winter. He's sick, he's been in cancer treatment, and he is able to support himself. He just is having a hard time finding a landing spot in Portland, as many, many people are. So he's somebody that I've been made aware of, and maybe we can do something to help him. In terms of volunteer stuff, we have some need for people for housekeeping. We have some need for people to do greeting. We have we have a need for people to do some other things. Where is Kristen? Kristen is our volunteer coordinator, and please contact her. Kristen, do you have an announcement about a yoga opportunity? Yeah, Karma Yoga. Yeah, please. Oh, here we go. Let's make sure it works. You're on.
Not to give you a hard time, but it's Kirsten.
Kirsten, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Not perfect.
That's right. It's okay. So yeah, we are having another Karma Yoga work party in October. It'll be October 21st, and that's an opportunity for us all to come together here in this beautiful place we share and help it continue to be beautiful. So that, maybe would be cleaning a window, helping vacuum the floors, and we'll probably are we doing pizza again, Avi?
Yes, we're doing pizza. Yeah. Lots of pizza.
Yeah. And it'll be all day on that Saturday, the 21st, and Avi's going to send out a constant contact notice about it. But if you've always wanted to help out, but you've never taken that opportunity, this is a great way to do it and a great way to talk with others and connect. And it's great because it's a one-time shot. There's no commitment beyond that one day. Of course, if you really enjoy it, we'd love to have you at that time connect with me or others about regular volunteering, because it definitely helps us stay alive and there is a big need right now. There's a lot of hospitality needs, especially right now. So if you'd like to do that or another type of volunteering, come talk to me or Avi, and we'll help connect you with who you need to see.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. Kirsten. Okay. Thank you. And not many people know this, but because we are a satellite facility of the Hogwarts Wizard Academy, we need help feeding our dragons. And so anyone who knows anything about dragon feeding, we would appreciate if you would contact us. So for the rest of today, is anyone doing Dharma consults? Dharma consults, Dharma consults. Jim is doing Dharma consults. Yay, Jim. We have a sign up in the back, 3 slots starting at noon for 20 minutes each if you have questions about your practice. We have hospitality afterwards. Feel free to join us for snacks and treats. For those of you who are new and feel a little bit uncomfortable about going down there by yourself, contact me, come over to me, and I will set you up with a Dharma buddy who will be someone you can talk to. We have a number of classes coming up. As Jim mentioned, if you like what the movement exercise that Jim was leading just a few minutes ago, Jim will be doing 4 hours of that on the 14th. As with all of our classes, no one is turned away for financial need, and that's on the 14th from 10 to 2. We also have 3 really foundational classes that are coming up in October. We've got the Eightfold Path, which is starting up next week. We also have Foundations of Mindfulness. These are 2 foundational classes. One is offered only once a year, the other is offered only twice. So if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of what we do, those are the classes for you. We have more information on the website. And then Robert is doing a Buddhist psychology class, which is starting in the next week or so. Not perfect. I can't remember the date, so because my computer wasn't working. But it is sometime soon. It is sometime within the next couple of weeks. We also have 2 retreats that are coming up. So we've got Hollyhock that is coming up starting next week. If you are on the fence about that and you are interested, go on the website. There may still be spots open. And then there is a Brighton Bush retreat at the end of the month. Again, that is on the website. I'm struggling here to think, is there anything else I have forgotten that anyone is? Regular weekly groups, yes. So we've got a Monday night book group. We've got a Tuesday morning sit at 9. Gary Sanders leads our Boundless Heart sit on Tuesday night. We've got another sit on Thursday led by Doug Pullen. And what's that? So yes, and Sunday night. Not perfect. What's that? Who's on tonight? We're not sure. Somebody's on tonight. Somebody's leading the sit tonight. Doug Pullen is leading the sit tonight. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your attention. Blessings on your day.
I'm adding something here at the beginning to, in response to Avi. Where'd you go, Avi? Yeah, there you are. To that wonderful sharing you did. It's from that great saint of the 20th century that we all know, and some of us really know and love, Mr. Rogers. I know how important it is to give up our expectations of perfection in every area of our lives. I know I've tried hard to do this, and yet I know that every once in a while the old pattern emerges. Maybe if I could make at least one proper segment of the program, and I find myself in the trap again. That doesn't mean that we can't produce highly satisfying moments for ourselves and others, but it is important to give up, maybe daily, trying to be perfect. Of course, I think we want it so strongly because we reason that if we're perfect, if we do a perfect job, we will be perfectly lovable. What a heavy burden. Thank God we don't have to earn every little bit of love that comes our way. Whew. There's such a tyranny of this perfection stuff. I guess one more thought on perfection. It's so easy, given the tyranny of perfectionism, it's so easy to fall into trying to be perfect in our meditation. To have an opinion, this meditative moment would be better if this were happening, or if this weren't happening. And so it's right at that very utterly intimate place where our very motivation for what we're doing when we're sitting on the cushion is a continuation of the violence. I'm in such a privileged position. People come and talk to me about their most intimate details of their inner lives, and it's really not uncommon for someone to show up who's been meditating sometimes for decades. And almost always they say, my concentration just isn't enough. I just don't have enough concentration. And so that means every time they meditate, they're dissatisfied with what's happening because they've been on retreat probably, or their life has been very calm for some time, and they've experienced very, very high, refined, beautiful, delicious, calm states of concentration. And then they've taken that and they've put it on the altar, and they've said, this is where I have to be. And so there's something wrong with me every time I sit down to meditate because I'm not concentrated. Or a person tends toward anxiety, maybe has an anxiety disorder, and so they're often dealing with anxiety in their meditation. Well, there's something wrong with me because I'm dealing with this personality that I was offered. So I just want to say a word. I said this to the newcomers this morning I shared with you that I think of it as the secret teaching from Ajahn Chah. This moment is like this. Oh. It's A moment of anxiety. Oh, it's a moment of fear. Ah, it's a moment of great bliss. Ah, it's a slightly different tone. Ah, bliss. But that the practice is really, it's the dipstick method. You know how it works with the dipstick in your car? It's not all white like this, but you pull it out and it's all grungy and your hands get dirty and you pull it and then you wipe it off and then you put it back in and then you see, oh, golly, I'm almost out of oil, or I'm down 2 quarts, 2 liters, I suppose, now. But you get information from it. It's the same thing when we sit down to meditate. What's the state? What's the state of this mind right now? How is it? Okay. Time check. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm going to talk fast because I have to hurry now because there's only half an hour. Very important information to cover. I am, as methodically as I can, going to go through the Eightfold Path, and partly with an intention, so there will be an Eightfold Path series on the website and on YouTube that people can really use, but also because it will provide some order here, and it'll also mean that you can't miss on Sundays, because you can watch it on the tube, damn. We're not going to post them for 2 months after that. Oh, it's such a beautiful thing, this Eightfold Path. If you go on the website, I forget exactly where, if you look under Eightfold Path, there's an elegant jewel, a turning jewel that was created by a woman named Karen LaPadula. Hello, Karen, if you're watching. She does video game universes, and so she created this one time with wise understanding, right, wise intention, wise speech, and so on. And it spins. It's like a hologram, the way I think of the Eightfold Path. So, last week, I started with Dukkha, the first of the 4 ennobling truths. And that Dukkha exists as birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death. And it exists in a context which is of the separate self, the I, this little creature, the little drop pops up out of the ocean, and then it goes through somebody training, and it starts singing the song of the self. I, me, mine, I, me, mine, I, me, mine, I, me, mine. And it forgets that it's part of the ocean, and to the degree that it forgets, it suffers, and that's us, right? We get born, we go through somebody training, and then we're so sensitive. We don't have any armor. Look at this soft belly. A stick will poke into it. And then we suffer. We suffer life. So there's those 4 major categories or 4 major phenomena: birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death. And then there's the catch-all categories, which are vast. Having experiences we don't want to have. How many of those did you have so far today? 100? And all day, for the rest of the day, it's going to continue. There will be lots, and we have no idea. This could be one of those days when we have a totally unacceptable experience that will go on for months. We might turn on the news and experience unacceptable things and find ourselves repelled by them. And then there's the opposite, in a way, of that. not having the experiences that we do want to have. So I have an image of what I would like. I have an image of, this is what I'd like to experience in meditation. This is how I would like my significant other to arise this morning, and the mood I would like him or her to be in, and the state that happens between us. Have you noticed it doesn't always happen? Right? Or this is how I would like my child to contact me who I haven't heard from in some time. Or this is the healthy circumstance of my pet that I would like to have. So we have these models and images and ideas of how we'd like life to be, and then they aren't. And then it gets even more personal in a way, which is being with person or persons that we don't want to be with. That can be really tough, can't it? Or, the other side of that one, not being with person or persons that we really want to be with. So there's a lot of disappointment. As Ruth Denison put it so colorfully numerous times, darling, there's always a leak in the canoe. So there's the Maha Dukkha, the great Dukkha of a terrible diagnosis or a death. And then there's the micro Dukkha of the I just don't feel good. This mood is not, I don't want to feel this. Or this sandwich doesn't have enough salt. Or it goes on and on and on and on. So as I understand the practice of the Eightfold Path, we train the mind, we train consciousness, we train our attention to pay attention to dukkha in a brand new way, because instead of thinking there's something wrong because I'm not satisfied, we'd flip it on its head and say, there's a lack of satisfaction here. I wonder if this is just how it is. I wonder if this is the nature of human life. Now, to do that means we have to go smack dab up against the advertising and the propaganda, the tremendous propaganda process, which is telling us that if we only got this new thing or had this new experience, we would be fine. A long time ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, I did a master's in environmental studies in Toronto, and I spent a year with Marshall McLuhan. Some of you remember him as the media guru. And among the things he said was the news. Why do we have the news? And then it was newspapers. You know, the New York Times used to be this thick. Why do we have the news? Well, it's because it points out everything that's bad, everything that's scary and dangerous and so on. Why do we actually have the news? Why do they produce the news? Because following the bad news, they can give us the good news, which is, you can buy this. And then you'll look like this. Hi, I'm happy. And it's not by accident that they're paired, because the fantasy is if we can just get the good news, which used to be in the advertising sections of the Times, now it's everywhere popping up. How do they run all these websites? They're always by the advertising. It's because it gets us to buy. So, if we're going to go the other direction, which the Buddha recommended, and we can test it to see if it works, we start paying attention to dukkha. We start hanging out with it. And we do that, one way we do that is in sitting meditation. We actually sit even when we don't want to. We sit in the midst of mental states that are unpleasant. We sit when the body hurts. Not to the point of torturing ourselves, but we start realizing something I've found recently to be very helpful is to do even brief fasts from the telephone. To not have the phone for 6 hours or so. And to see how often I want to check. It's not that I care that much about the news, it's that I want to be distracted. Because what's happening right now sucks. Slight boredom. I just want... Would someone just step out into the hall, one of the guys, and see? There's probably not, but we had some boots disappear last week. Seems okay? Oh, good. Okay, great. Thank you. Paranoia. Where was I? Anybody remember? Cell phone. Oh, cell phone. Right. Good purse. Good. Don't leave valuables out in the waiting room, in general. So, it's interesting. That little moment, and then the remembering, and there's a little flutter in the field. The biology. So, there's 3 insights with each of these 4 ennobling truths. The first is the intellectual one, which is, gosh, maybe this Dukkha stuff is real. It doesn't mean everything's awful. Can someone close the window? It just means that there's dissatisfaction. And then the second level of it is we start paying attention and we realize, it's true. It's here a lot. And then we gain some capacity with it that maybe our second response when we're experiencing some discomfort or dukkha is that we think, aha, I'm going to pay attention to this. This is important. Here's the path is calling to me. Time. So it would be a really grim teaching if we stopped there, right? Pay attention more and more closely to the ways that your life is really disappointing and mildly disappointing, and when it really is awful, and take antidepressants and get by. I happen to be a great fan of antidepressants. They helped me a lot for a decade. But that's not what this is about. There's a second ennobling truth. And it goes like this. If we're studying the human mind, our mind, and we can pay attention to that sense of, don't like, resistance. It's also possible when the mind is clear enough and when we understand the map well enough to ask ourselves the question, why am I suffering right now? What's the actual cause? Is it the toothache? Is it the pain in the heart, the grief? Is it... let's go back. I want to go back to my dog dream. In case some of you weren't here, I had a dream this morning, I think in preparation for this talk, where my dog went missing, my beloved dog that I'm very attached to. And I was, in the end of it, I was in a valley just calling out his name, like with that bereft sense of, Buddha, Buddha, where are you, Buddha? And there was no answer, right? And we all know what that's like. It's something unacceptable is happening. Right? This reality is not acceptable. And of course, Buddha will be. One of us will go first. Probably, I hope. I hope him. Much as I love him. Actually, it's a very selfless thing, because when I'm not home, he just sits and waits for me. It's like, where's my dad? Where's my dad? Where's my dad? So we know what that's like. We know what that's like, and we fear it. That's where in my family we say don't get dead. We don't say drive carefully. We say don't get dead. Because every time we get in one of these tin boxes, we're putting, it's we're spinning the thing and pulling the trigger. It's Russian roulette every time. And we know that. Similarly, I don't think it's, I don't know that it's new for me, but every now and then I get a new pain, and it's like, oh no, is this the start? Is it MS? Have I? It's like, because I know that something's going to go wrong in this body, and it's getting old. Something significant is going to go wrong, and it will limit what I can do radically, or it'll be the end of my life. And so we have a lot of fear of that. So coming back to this second ennobling truth, the why is there suffering? The hypothesis goes like this. We experience suffering because we have unenforceable rules. And asterisk, Buddhist joke. Do you know why it is so boring and tedious to talk to Buddhists? They always talk with a list. And difficult to understand, I missed one. So there's three primary energies, there's three primary causes for our suffering. And they are, I want pleasant, I want pleasure, this should be pleasant. Or, I don't want unpleasant. This moment is unpleasant and I don't want it. Or, this moment is unsatisfactory, and so I'm going to create a fantasy and I'm going to become something. I'm going to become, so that when I become that in that imagined future, then I won't be in this state. So, I am in dukkha. I pause long enough to realize I really am in dukkha. This is unpleasant. And it's hard. I continue to find it very challenging in my own practice to just be with, some of you were here when I talked about this. I fell on my bicycle a couple of months ago. I went camping about a month after that, and I had pain. And it was okay during the day, but as soon as I lay down, it got really bad. And so we were camping, I wound up sitting in the cab of the car, in the driver's seat of the car, trying to sleep. And all the electronics died, because the car had died. And I didn't even know what time it was. And in the middle of the night, there was just this feeling awful, yucky. And what I realized to do was to realize this is really unpleasant. This is dukkha. Now, it wasn't maha dukkha, great, but it was pretty darn unpleasant. So what to do? Feel that, but then with the reflection, so what's causing this? Well, in the mind there was, I don't like this. This is not acceptable. I want to be somewhere else. So, we develop a mind which is stable enough and attentive enough to, in the midst of dukkha, become very analytic in a way, or very, very observational. So here's the dukkha, and to get as clear as we can on it, and then we kind of feel our way into what's the resistance. What's the resistance? Is it resisting pain? Is it wanting pleasure? Is it wanting to become somewhere else or something else? Oftentimes, people have breakthroughs in working in this way with severe physical pain. There's a kind of moderate level. People often encounter this on retreat. You're sitting in meditation and maybe your knee is hurting or something is hurting and your concentration's getting stronger. And so you're able to sit for maybe half an hour or 45 minutes, but then something starts to hurt. I always point at my right knee because that's where my first really big encounters with this were. And so there's pain in the knee, you're back, come to the breath, go back to the knee. The knee says, me, I'm hurting. You check out, is this damaging the knee? No. Will it go away in 30 seconds if I stand up? Yes. Well, then I'm going to stay with it. So I'm breathing in, breathing out. The knee, I'm hurting. And so one puts aside awareness of the breath and takes up the knee, the sensations in the knee, painful. And then one goes toward it and becomes more and more relaxed into it and softening and more attentive and more curious because there's this hurting, disliking. And then if you stay with it and you observe it for a while, sometimes what happens is the suffering disappears. You know this experience, don't you? The suffering disappears and nothing's changed in the stimuli that are getting to the brain. I don't know that. But subjectively, there's pain and there's suffering, but then it stops. And maybe you've been thinking, when is he going to ring the damn bell? I mean, get over it. I mean, is he asleep up there or she asleep? Ring the bell! And then it's gone. And then you don't care if they ring the bell because you've fallen into this space of ease and grace, sort of. And then, boom, all of a sudden it's back. And you can experience yourself shuttling into suffering and out of suffering. What's happening? This is a cultivable phenomenon. And it's the core of what the Buddha taught. And it's possible to do this. I had an experience of doing this with kidney stone pain in India, where kidney stones came on and I spent several days when it would hit. And if no one would talk to me and I could just pay attention to it and go in and in and in, the suffering went away. There was still the voice in the mind, I'm going to die in India, I want my mommy. But there was no identification with it. There was no resistance to it. And I experimented after 2 or 3 days. I took some codeine, which was a serious mistake because it was not enough to transport me. And what had been a quiet person lying on a bed in a little cement cell in India became a 27-year-old sobbing, freaking out person that then gradually went away again when the drugs got out of my system. So, tanha. Oh, I should finish this. The third ennobling truth, which really has to be spoken of at the same time, when that craving for something to be different quenches, nirvana occurs. And nirvana is not only a one-time whiny band from Seattle. My son was living with me at the time. It was a long time ago, of course. His bedroom and guitar were right under my office. Every now and then I had to ring. I had a buzzer, and I'd ring down and say, "I can't hear it again. I just can't. You gotta stop." But what it means is quenching, and it's also not another place. It's not the heaven realm, or it's simply here when the resistance to here stops. This moment is like this. It's like this. Which means it's really available to us. It's not something that if we're good boys and girls and we practice really diligently and so on, that maybe someday in the future I'll get to experience nirvana. Why not practice today when you're hurting over something, when you're suffering? Why not turn toward that suffering open to it fully and study what the unenforceable rule is. You're stuck in traffic and there's irritation. It's common, right? These days in Portland, it's quite remarkable how it's changed. Those of you that have come in the last 5 years, go home. Nah, you can stay. We're all immigrants. Stuck in traffic and there's irritation, you're suffering. Why? Ask yourself, what's the unenforceable rule? This shouldn't be happening. Actually, I saw recently a funny, silly in a way. I was driving along Multnomah Boulevard toward my home, and it was in the evening. I was not in a hurry, and I was 200 yards from the light, maybe closer, and it turned yellow. And I saw in myself this disliking. It's like, shit, I have to stop. What? How interesting. It was, who cares? Well, someone in here cares. Because I didn't want to move my foot to the brake, right? So it's happening all the time. I mentioned food before. It's like, oh, there's really a suffering. The more one tends toward being a gourmet, the more suffering there is. Really. The more one's taste is developed, right? Oh, this room is just so, those curtains are so jarring. It's a kind of extra suffering that we add by demanding that things be just so. And what happens with this second ennobling truth also is one hears about it. That's interesting. Maybe it's true. And then one decides, I'm going to carry out the experiment. And you start watching. You watch for the dukkha, and then you watch for the tanha. Tanha means thirst, means craving. You start watching for the tanha. And then you get more and more capacity in doing it. And then you start noticing how the suffering vanishes. I spoke with my beloved friend Don yesterday, I guess, maybe the day before, about how his grief was going. And Don's a very experienced meditator. He's been, he came on a retreat with me 22 years ago, and since then he started teaching with me. And for I don't know, 12, 13, 14 of those years, he went for at least 1 month a year to do intensive practice. And so he's quite an observer. And he said, as I recall, those first 3 days, the feeling of grief and loss in the body, in the physiology, was just grinding. And he said, and I really stayed with it. I stayed with it really fully. And today's the first day that I see it's moving into memory. Now it's memory. It's still there, but it's no longer so in the body. And it'll continue to go in that direction as his grieving proceeds. So any question, comment, any amplification of this? Lots of you in here have been exploring this for a long time. Oh, and then the third insight is when it becomes natural in our lives. We start looking for it, really. So what's the unenforceable rule? So any question or comment? A few minutes. Anyone from the internet? KB, please.
I really am beginning to understand what you're saying, but I guess I get stuck where I don't know what to do with it when I see it. Do you know, okay, so I've seen it, and then it's gone. And am I supposed to do something with it?
The seeing is the doing.
Okay.
Krishnamurti said that. The seeing is the doing. Awareness. And, what? Come get. Awareness is the great power in the universe. Because awareness isn't personal, it's the awareness of the universe. That's a big statement, but I think it's true. It's not, we like to think that, I'm aware, but I think it's not that. And one of the ways you can test that is when you're sitting in meditation and your mind wanders off and you, quote, are gone. You're obsessing about something. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes, boink, awareness of that. Who did that? Oh, well, I did. Are you sure? Or is it the universe awakening to itself? Is that the Buddha nature awakening? I think it is. So awareness is the great freedom creator. That's why mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness, is so central. Jackie.
Just a observation I've been making this week with all of the things happening in Puerto Rico and that area. Just the contrast between what's being reported about that, and then the news cuts to a commercial that's for sandals, resort, and it's like the same area, and it's like this beautiful, heaven, nirvana, or whatever. And I don't know, it was just kind of placing those two things in contrast and going, there's a reality here somewhere, and just how in life so many things are like that. We tend to make up these fantasies and assumptions about something or someone, and just so much of our world is us looking at a picture of what we think rather than what's actually there. And to me, the mindfulness, that's what's so important. We have to experience. We have to see it and feel it for ourselves. Because if we listen to someone else, it gets into like North Korea or something like that, where you're told how to feel, so you feel it. Anyway, think about that a lot.
In one of the chants that, in homage to the Buddha and the Dharma, it's a come and see for yourself, and that the truth is visible here and now, and that it leads inward. That the fact is, this isn't something to believe; it's something to experience, and it's so interesting. Right? When you experience it, it's like, whoa, this is real. This is real, and it affects me now. So that then encourages us to practice the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. And then we go off on all our tangents and our addictions and our compulsions. But then there's this kind of this homing beacon that builds, which is, I want to be in contact with reality because it's so nourishing. So thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. I shall be away for the next 2 Sundays. I can't remember who's teaching. Gregory Malouf will be here next Sunday. I will be at Hollyhock teaching a retreat in that beautiful place. Come. Or come to Brightonbush at the end of November. Brightonbush is filling up. I'm not in the big space. I'm in the smaller venue there. So if you want to come, I strongly suggest you sign up soon. I hear the wild creatures in the chute. Please, let's form a large circle, and thank you for your attention and kindness. Thank you, folks on the internet. Nice to see you. Hi. Are you? Oh, those crutches must be getting really old. Oh dear. I saw you without them and I thought you were done with it. You too. You clearly must be doing something wrong, otherwise you'd be healed by now, right? You've caused this reality to yourself with your thoughts. It's your... We should talk later about what you're thinking wrong. So, hands. Why don't we try something new and just turn to the person beside you and say hi. 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 It's a little weird, isn't it? Hi. Well, that was fun. So now, why not give the hand on your right a little squeeze and think a nice thought for that person. And then think a nice thought for the person on your left, a kind thought. And then how about that person who's between your hands, who we tend to neglect? You can think a kind thought for him or her too. And then using the love of this moment to imagine radiating outward from our circles to the people in the houses around us, to the people in this city and all the cities in North America, to our brothers and sisters who are in the woods, in the water, in the air, to everywhere on the planet where people are short of food, electricity. There's suffering everywhere, but there's really great suffering in some places. And let's extend our wishes of loving kindness and compassion to those who find themselves in the role of leadership in our country and others. Such important positions for reducing or creating greater suffering. May they be touched and feel loved and safe and act from that place. And so we have our ritual of singing. Who is it? You two? No? You two? No? Oh, it's these two? Oh, you'd like to too, wouldn't you? We could sing along with them.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
That was singing with giggling. That was good. Very nice. I see. I think giggling is okay when you're singing, especially as a happy song like that. All right, so everyone in the room gets to take a huge deep breath. And those of you on the internet, help us. Take a great deep breath in. And then 1, 2, 3, blow. Whoa, that was quick. Yay, thank you. Thank you. Please do come have a cup of tea and join us, and I'll see you soon.